12 months from now looks extremely amazing for crypto and Bitcoin and the S&P and real estate. Everything looks like it is going up in our everything bull market. This bubble is getting bigger. The data has suggested that. We've been calling for this since the lows in 2022. So thank you to you guys who have been following and seeing the progression of the markets coming up, rising, giving you profits while the masses have been talking about recession. If you haven't been following, 3 out of 10 of you, hit the like and subscribe button. Don't go anywhere on this journey because in 12 months' time, I dare say the message will be slightly different. So make sure you are subscribed here on the channel. You've made it to your home of macro cycle analysis. We cover Bitcoin, cryptos, the stock market, and of course, real estate, looking at that big, broad macro cycle that covers the economics and the business cycle. Most important stuff here when it comes to our long-term investing. Now, at the top of the video description is your free crypto and economic report. That comes out in less than 24 hours. So if you want to receive that, make sure you have subscribed to that email. It now comes out once every week, so be sure to subscribe. Now, I'm also using the Gann swing indicator and our beautifully recrafted Bitcoin forward returns table here. Now, this isn't available yet. We have a few more things to flesh out, but if you want to be notified when this is released, make sure you are on that free email list. All right, guys, let's kick it off with the macro cycle at hand. The real estate cycle, we are sitting here. We have a few more years to go before the impending doom and collapse and that sort of stuff. But in the meantime, there is a lot of gains to be made. Now, I want to go through the specifics on the Bitcoin chart, which will also flow over into altcoins as well, as we can definitely see there are going to be some good times ahead for this 12 months. Now, it could last a little longer than that, but as I said in the intro, possibly 12 months from now, the message is going to be a little different. 12 months from now, then looking forward to that period could be nice and bubbly, nice and fluffy, but there will probably be some sort of turning point after that period. And so I know it's a long way out, but I think it's important to be prepared now because these are the good times. Essentially, when we get to those peaks of the good times in the past, no one wants to believe it. If you've seen comments from people in previous cycles, and many started following the channel back here at the peak, March, April, May, maybe that was yourself, they didn't want to believe that this cycle only had several months to go. That's a long time. You can make some pretty significant gains in that period, but a lot of the discussion and the talk at those peaks is around holding for 5 years, holding for an indefinite amount of time until Bitcoin reaches $1 million, until it reaches 500,000. And unfortunately, the majority of the time that doesn't happen. Now, it's not the most exciting thing that you want to hear, but we're here to make money, not screw around with big hopes and dreams of these ridiculous targets that our moon boys and moon girls give us, like Kathy Wood telling us Bitcoin's going to go to 1.5 million. The moon boys and moon girls are there to give us hype at the peaks. That's why they get all of the media attention on them. So let's stay focused. These are the good times ahead. But as I said, I think in 12 months' time, it's going to be vitally important to understand what we might be seeing 12 months from that point. And I say that because I think that is going to be where we see very, very extreme hype in the next 12 months. And it's going to be difficult to see through that forward looking over that next 12 months. So this is where we are roughly in this peak, in this move to the peak of the real estate cycle. Now, when this peak comes in, things get very, very bubbly. This everything bull market that I've been talking about here on the channel gets rosy, gets bubbly, and a lot of money starts flooding in everywhere. So I think we still have a little bit of time left to get in before the masses see everything and hear all about it and then start telling you about it. And so just stay cautious of the market right now. So the message is to remain with the market throughout this period, have your plans in place, understand that things aren't going to go on forever, and now is still a reasonably good time, especially if you missed out on the lows in November of 2022 and those good times in early 2023 as well. Now, looking at the 12 months ahead for the S&P. That's all the discussion we had at the beginning about the market sentiment and the feelings and emotions. Let's get down to some of the raw data itself. Holding S&P 500 index, so holding the index for 12 months if January's up or January's down. That's essentially the deciding factor here. This tells us if it is up, do this for 12 months. If it is down, do this for 12 months. So it's a nice, clear if-then statement, nice and simple, not let me hold it until Bitcoin hits 100,000 or 500,000. That is nonsense. Get that out of your head. Don't ask for price predictions, because at the end of the day, look at what happened to people in 2021. Look what happened to them in 2017. Price predictions wreck people. Always wrecks people. Now we focus on the S&P because it's the biggest market, and if there is more money flowing into the S&P, then eventually it finds its way out. It finds its way through to Bitcoin and cryptos. Now I know for some, they don't want to believe it. They think Bitcoin is separate to the entire system. Look, that would be lovely if it happened one day, but that's not the case at the moment. It's a very clear signal, a very clear indicator that when money comes into the markets and more people are feeling risky, then more money flows into Bitcoin and then into cryptocurrencies because they are even more risky. It's just a big Ponzi scheme of hopes and dreams. The best marketing wins, and that's where you make your 25s, 50, 100x returns. It's not that sexy. It's just the way the game is, and it's been like that forever. 1920s, the same thing happened to those people who got sucked into the stock market. Big booms, big busts. So back to the data. January up, January down. This is what you want to do if January is up. 84% of the time when January is up, you want to hold it for the next 12 months all the way through to the end of the next January. So this is giving us some insights to what we may expect over this coming 12 months of 2024. Remember, we're still hearing calls of recession in 2024. It's getting less than it was in 22 and 23, but we're still hearing about it. And there are still some folks who think we're going to get a massive blow off top and then a subsequent collapse bigger than 1929. With that aside, the data is not suggesting that, and nor are the other cycles we watch in terms of commodities. But back to the data here. 16% of the time, you will see a lower price for the S&P 500 in that 12-month period. So the odds are stacked in favor of holding for this next 12 months. Essentially, all it's saying is it's going to be higher. How much higher? We'll have a look in just a sec. But if January is down, and we only have 2 days left of January, if it is down, then it's basically a 50-50 flip at that point. So would you want to be holding through that? Maybe, maybe not. Let's have a look at the averages here. The averages further down, you can see 13% up. The median is 13%. Now, if January was down, you got a 50-50 here, and essentially you could see an average of about 2% or a median of 3%. So it's not the worst. You're not getting a loss, but it's not what you come to the markets for. You're not coming to the markets to make 2%. You basically put the money in the bank and you're going to make more than that now. Maximum percent, 40%. Now that sounds a little better. And if January was down, the maximum they had was a 32%. But the minimum was a -17 and a -40. So really, if January is down, which it doesn't look like it will be at this stage for the S&P 500, considering how high we are now, pushing to fresh highs yet again today, just looking at the data here, if it was down, then you risk running into a big loss in 12 months' time. Now, we can see the gains were roughly 13%. The number of times that it was greater than 15% was 20, and the number of times it was under 15% was 2. So I like those odds. I'm going to be potentially using the data here, getting above 15% return, 20 out of those 20 times, and then the other 2 times was under 15%. So those odds to me are pretty damn good. Now this table here shows what happens to the S&P from a bear market year to a bull market year, and then the following year. Now, 12 months later, just above my head here, 90% of the time, the market has been higher. Now, we looked at this briefly in a previous video, but just as a quick run through here, what this is looking at is if we had a red year, which was 22, then we had a green year. What are the chances of having a red year? So red year, green year, red year. Now, if we look back across 62 years of history, there has not been one case, let's say 61 years, because at the 62nd year, there was one case. There was one case where we had red, then green, then red. So 1 out of 62 years, I like my odds that this year is going to be a green year as well. And what does it have to do to be a green year? Essentially, it just needs to close above the previous year's close, and that was at 4,770 points. So we're seeing a lot of positive results or potential positive results for these markets to head up higher in 2024, which would essentially mean we're going to see higher prices for Bitcoin. Now, we've also had that signal that I've been looking at for Bitcoin, for the S&P to hit new all-time high prices. We've got that. I think we'll see a pullback and then the S&P to push into new all-time highs again, which then essentially signals that Bitcoin bull market is just ready to blow, and that's where we get the 20s, 50s, 100x's on altcoins, the bigger pumps, the altcoin season that everyone wishes and dreams of. And that is coming according to what we're seeing here on the charts. Now, if we go back in history again, there are other times where the market had a red year, a green year, a red year, and then it started to go into green. This happened to be at the end of the Second World War. We are not in a world war at the moment. I know many want to believe that we are, but essentially, it baffles me why people still think that. But anyway, we're not in there yet, and maybe we do see another world war in the coming years, especially if you've been following things like the 80 to 90 year cycle, the fourth turning, how things are culminating, maybe even you getting into Ray Dalio's look at cycles as well. Things look like they are heading to that direction, but they don't start from this point. The wars typically start after you see a very, very massive decline in the stock markets. And basically, things are bad. Who do we go and blame? Right now, we don't have anyone to blame because it sounds crazy, but things aren't bad, especially when you look at the stock market. It can be bad for many people, but really, when things go bad, everyone is in trouble and they want to go and find someone to blame. That's how those wars start. So that's my understanding of world wars and cycles. Let's continue on. And we shall continue on with Bitcoin now, looking at these macro cycles and 12-month forward returns, the exciting part here. So what we've been looking at recently is the ETF news, the sell-off, and that being a sell the news event. It was confirmed, went from 49 to 38.5. Nothing was enough to push this thing up any higher. It got rejected at the monthly swing top back from March, April of 2022. And yes, we did have a correction now. But what I've been saying this entire time is I don't think it's necessary to rush out and buy now. I think we still have a nice little window coming up, as you may have heard before looking at the previous analysis, but it's probably not the time to be waiting for sub 30,000s. I have seen some calls for 28 and 29. I don't think those are going to get met. I don't think 30 is going to get met. I think it'll be very tough to get 31 or 32. I think this is a mid 30s, which is roughly that sort of 33, 34 up to about 36, 37 period, or even the high 30s, the 38s, which we have now hit. So I think if we're waiting for those prices under roughly 33 or 34,000, it's possibly not going to happen, just like what happened to those people who were unfortunately waiting for Bitcoin to collapse down past 20,000 and past 15,000, and none of those moves happened. I think they're waiting for the same sort of thing here. Now, that's my opinion. Let's have a look at the facts so we can identify what comes next. So here is our chart of the monthly returns for Bitcoin. We'll have a look at the annual returns as well, the 12 months forward. Now let's have a look for February. As we're coming up to February, it's a good idea to see what we may expect for the month of February, my birthday month. All right, so we have February. You can see through this column right here, the greens and the reds, there have been 13 times Bitcoin is traded in February, of course. Wins 10, losses 3, giving us a 77% hit rate for just the month of February. Buy on the first, sell at the end, and 77% of the time it has been green. Now, the cool thing with this indicator dashboard is that we can turn off some of the years to give us different results. Now, we're not trying to curve fit too much here. The main things I want to turn off are just the bear market years. And for BTC, there was basically 2014, 2018, and 2022. So if we turn those years off, 2022, 2018, 2014, then we can see the numbers get a little more favorable to a positive February return. Total being 10 results, 8 wins, 2 losses, so an 80% hit rate for the month of February. Now we've got something even better. Let's have a look at the annual returns here, and we can click through for the 12-month period, buying on the 1st, selling on the last day of that 12th month. So in this case, we're looking at February through to January. We have 13 results, 10 wins, 3 losses, 77% hit rate. So this is just for the 12-month period. And what we can see in the middle are the percentage returns for that 12-month period. So if we want to identify which stage of the cycle we are in, we're looking at a rough 4-year cycle. Remember, that's low to low, not this Bitcoin halving. Try not to get too messed up with what people are referencing when they talk about the 4-year cycle. A lot of them talk about the Bitcoin halving, but I'm looking specifically referencing from low point to low point, because then that gives us an idea of whether the cycle is going to be strong or if the cycle is going to be weak. Weak being that you get a peak in the first half of that 2 years. Okay, so back to the data and what we can expect over the next 12 months. And of course, this will essentially dictate what happens to cryptos as well, whether we get that 12, 20, 40, 100% X. And I want to have a look at that on the altcoin chart as well. We are sitting in 2024. We look back the 4 years to 2020, look back the 4 years to 2016 and 2012. Those have all been very, very good years, 2012, 2016, 2020. And essentially, it is a 100% hit rate. I don't think that was any surprise. What we're anticipating over the next 12 months, 1st of February to the last day of January, is that the markets are going to be higher. So regardless of what happens over the next couple of months, maybe we do see some corrections. Maybe this first half of the year, as we've been anticipating for the S&P 500, do get a little rockier because it's basically been a nice, easy, straight up run from here. And we start to see a little bit of some sideways movement to consolidate above highs. We're still anticipating over the coming 12 months from 1st of Feb to the end of January 2025, getting my years right here, we're still expecting that to be higher over that 12-month period. So that's an easy one. That's 3 years worth there. Let's turn these all back on and just turn off, in case we're wrong, just turn off the years that were the bearish years. Because so far we have never seen a red, a green, and then a red again. Similar to what we did on the S&P 500, looking at those the red to the green to the red years, if that actually happens. And so we have less data here for Bitcoin, but nonetheless, let's do this as an exercise. So we have the red years being the bear market years. That's 2014, 2018, and 2020. And again, that hits a 100% hit rate. So we have 10 data points here with 10 wins. So again, you might say, well, what about if it doesn't happen? What if we do get a red year? That could be the case. It just hasn't happened for Bitcoin yet. Maybe we do get one of those years, and that is what we're anticipating over the course of the next cycle, where we may get a multi-year bear market for Bitcoin. That's what Michael and I have been talking about with the Investor Accelerator members. We've mentioned it here as well on YouTube. So that's why, as I suggested in the intro, stay tuned to the channel, subscribe, do what you need to do, but we may not experience another massive bull run after this peak, because this looks like we are going into that everything bubble. Things are going to get massive. Real estate, stocks, cryptos, Bitcoin. But after that peak, if we do get this decline and this crash after sort of 2026, then it's probably unlikely that we'll see another big new all-time high for Bitcoin. Now, we will probably see some bounces along the way. There's going to be some great fun times to be had. But in terms of this big macro cycle where things go absolutely bananas, hit new all-time highs, it's very easy for the markets to pump. I am not anticipating that to occur in that 4-year period. I am anticipating pumps, but not the same significance as what we've seen for Bitcoin throughout the 2021 pump, the 2017 pump, the 2013 pump, and what I anticipate to be the 2025 pump. So I don't know if that same sort of thing is going to happen through 2028 into 2029. But that's a long way off. We've got plenty of massive gains to be had from now until then. So let's have a look at the altcoins and the cycle of where we currently sit there, the 12 months ahead. Now, I know a lot of people are wanting to know which are the best altcoins, but making the 20, 50, 100Xs, and I'm going to repeat this over and over again, is knowing when to sell. knowing which altcoins to pick is just one tiny piece of the equation, because the majority of alts and of course Bitcoin are going to move in this next 12 months. Of course, if the cycles are all correct and we're seeing the same sort of data come through that the markets are going to head up. So it's not necessarily only about picking the best altcoins. It's primarily about knowing when to sell, because as I pointed out, things get a little bit crazier at these peaks, and no one wants to know that the markets have the potential to collapse at the peaks. Like they're basically getting ready to break down. So knowing when to sell is going to be your best friend once you've made your 20, 50, 100x. Otherwise, you see the 100x paper profits and then you see them fade out and you lose basically 97% again. So with that in mind, let's take a look at the total cryptocurrency market cap, excluding Bitcoin, excluding ETH, and with the TIA crypto total market cap, we can exclude all the stable coins as well. So I'll hit OK on that. And essentially, this is where we sit. I'm suggesting we might be somewhere in this area, looking for this correction. And again, it seems like that's the area that we are in, looking for this correction. You guys probably have seen this that I put up in December, looking for a correction or a top, then into a correction, roughly around 2023, quarter one of 2024. Now, I could almost say that this is it. We haven't had a pullback yet on the swing, but we are seeing a correction. What we're noticing about this correction compared to the last correction is that it is much shallower than that last correction. I do not anticipate the market to go back and really crush any of these significant lows back here. I think at best, we're going to come back and test the tops. That's at best. But ideally, we see the altcoin market come back and test roughly around these previous tops or about that $300 billion area as a potential bottom. Now, in terms of timing, because well, that's what we do here. Looking at the timing, the last one was about 6-ish weeks. Call it around 2 months. You had the top here the month before and then the bottom the month after, and then you could see it bounce back pretty quickly. So over this period of quarter one, I think that's going to be the pretty significant area to be loading up on your altcoins of choice. Remember what the main name of the game is, and that is to sell once you've made your profits. Don't hold them. Hit it and quit it. Use whatever meme you've got to get through your head so that you don't hold these shit coins right through to the end, hoping that they give you some sort of mega returns because of staking or airdrops or any of this BS, right? That is the stuff that works when the bull market is on. Once the bull market is over, all it does is wreck people. They hold on, hoping for the best. Okay, so if we are in this area, then from that correction, we may have 1, 2, 3-ish months left before we really start to see a breakout of these tops. So I think best case scenario, we see, the quickest scenario, maybe this is the correction here in February, and we start to bounce back a month or so later as we lead into that halving around April. And then I'd say the longest time frame, when maybe we bottom out through into the halving around April-ish, and then start to work our way out a couple of months later before taking out those previous tops that the markets created in December of 2023, something like that. Nonetheless, in terms of timing, Bitcoin's new all-time high was November 2020. We take a measured move back from that all-time high to the current turning point. That was about 9 months. And so the current tops for the altcoins are December 2023. We go forward 9 months. It's roughly around September-ish. So we're looking for a Bitcoin all-time high somewhere from September to November, November being the elections for the US. And so that brings us out to late quarter 3, potentially quarter 4 of 2024, where things get absolutely ballistic, bananas, things go mental, and that is the 50, 100x time. Now is the accumulation time, and we may only have a few months left for that accumulation. So that's a look at Bitcoin's forward returns for the next 12 months. Bitcoin, what it will do in February of this year. We've also looked at altcoins, the timing left, where we see it now, what we see in about 12 months time, because like we can see from the 12-month period, if we look at where we are now, say in December, 12 months from now is January 2021. Well, what happened from January 2021 for the next 12 months? The markets basically had already peaked and were starting to come down. So you're still in profits from that point, but getting in later makes things a lot riskier. And now from that point, well, markets were down 12 months, 24 months, and they still haven't seen their prices like they did back in early 2022. We've also covered the real estate cycle. the big thing that we are watching to tell us when the rest of the world basically is about to collapse, looking at all of the markets and looking at the data forward for the next 12 months on the S&P 500 to ensure that this is all also lining up with the Bitcoin cycle. Well, essentially, this will tell us what happens next for Bitcoin and cryptos because, of course, there is more money in the stock markets and real estate. Like and subscribe. We're going for 400,000 in 2024. Share it with a friend. Let them know where to find the macro cycle analysis, and I'll see you guys at the next video. Cut out the noise, and I'll see you at the next one. Till then, take care and peace out.